Unlike the Clipper ferry ride to Victoria a few days earlier, our return trip was beautifully clear. The passage 3 days earlier had been blanketed by fog. To our right, we could see Port Townsend, where we were headed to next. While in Port Townsend, I cooked a chicken biryani dinner in my Woodstock School classmate Marg Groff's kitchen, and we invited Woodstock School friends Suzanne and Richard Friedrichs and David and Julie McCullough for dinner. It was a joy to get together. We visited David Rue as we had a year earlier and enjoyed another walk through his property. It felt like walking through an enchanted old forest with its 200-year-old trees and lovely ferns. Marg suggested that we visit the Dungeness Spit, a little over an hour away. Located near the town of Squim, it is a national wildlife refuge. As in so many places, our America is Beautiful card got us in free. Forged by ice, wind, and water, a spit, I learned, is a natural occurring strip of land that extends out into the ocean. The Dungeness Spit is truly beautiful. The constant waves have pushed tons of driftwood ashore. People were enjoying the walk along the Spit Beach. 5 miles out along the Spit, there is an active lighthouse. Through the years, the Spit has formed a protective lagoon behind it for migrating birds. The peaceful trail to the Spit is lined with old forest trees and ferns. It is beautiful. Here we see how years ago a seed fell on an old stump and took root. As the tree grew, it sent roots down around the trunk to the ground. Now the old trunk has all but rotted away. Reluctantly, I said goodbye to Laura, who had to fly back to her teaching job in Colorado. I then headed to the North Cascade Highway, which I had heard a lot about. It was my first time to visit Northern Cascades National Park. The unusually interesting park sign provided a photo op for many. The visitor center was stocked with a lot of helpful information. The towering Cascade Mountains and lakeside drives were beautiful. It was cloudy driving back through the mountains a few days later, but nonetheless beautiful. I followed the signs to the Washington Pass Overlook. There I tried to make out Liberty Bell Mountain, and I'm sure I found it through the clouds. Back at the trailhead, a poster showed how Liberty Bell Mountain looks on a clear day. I was told that the beautiful lakes we passed by were greenish because they were fed by glacier melt. The next day, classmate Ken Walduck and I drove to Artist Point in the Cascades near the Canadian border to climb Table Mountain, where you get a tremendous view of Mount Baker. As we climbed, we hoped the clouds would clear when on top. Unfortunately, no such luck. We sat down and enjoyed the lunch that Mary had made for us, and we made a call to classmate Lloyd Clausen, who I hoped to visit the next day. The next day I joined Lloyd and Gail and a friend at Saffron in Seattle for lunch and a most enjoyable visit. I thought the vegetable pakoras were especially good and well presented. From Seattle, I returned to the Dungeness Spit that Laura and I had visited earlier, and I camped there for a few days. It was beautifully clear. Mount Baker, which had eluded Ken and me 2 days earlier, was dramatically clearly framing the Dungeness Spit Lighthouse. Ships were heading to port in Seattle, and others were heading out to sea. People were enjoying one of the remaining days of the summer camping season. That night the sun took its time setting as I watched patiently, but ended up speeding up the process while editing. It was dazzlingly beautiful. And the next morning I got up early and walked down to the spit to get the sunrise. Mount Baker was mockingly beautifully clear, and again framing the lighthouse. Heading further south on the Olympic Peninsula and camping along the way, I stopped at places like Crescent Lake. Vacationers were enjoying the water. I took the trail to the Mary Marie Falls about a mile away. They were, of course, beautiful and were attracting a lot of visitors. Some of the huge trees along the way were 400 years old. I camped for a few nights in Forks and visited Rialto Beach, quite a popular ocean front. I enjoy watching the ocean waves. They are mesmerizing. When I returned to Rialto Beach in the afternoon after a picnic lunch, the tide was coming in. The waves beating against the shore were much bigger and louder than they were in the morning. We were reminded of those who first lived along these shores. Entering Oregon, I spent a day at the KOA campground near Lincoln City. In Portland, I spent a couple of nights with classmate Sarah Rice and her husband, John. Together, we watched a video of our 50th reunion in India. While in Portland, I visited Powell's City Books, one of the largest bookstores in the world, covering a full city block with many floors of books inside. I purchased Sapiens, about the history of the human race, and read for 2 hours in their coffee shop. I had been looking forward to visiting some of the campgrounds in the Portland area, so I headed to Sunset Falls. The falls were impressive, and the river offered some great swimming holes that were visited throughout the day. Trillium Lake Campground was my favorite of the whole trip. It is located deep in the Mount Hood National Forest. My campsite was visually isolated with the thick forests all around me. The main attraction of the campground is Trillium Lake, with Mount Hood towering above it. I was fortunate to get one of the last available first-come, first-served campsites. It was a beautiful day for enjoying the water. Many brought their own kayaks and paddleboards. However, they were also there for rent. I enjoyed watching all of the people enjoying the water on this, the second last weekend of the summer camping season. Not many were out the next morning for sunrise. I was glad I was one of them. I took a Lake Trillium sunrise selfie. 3 girls that morning, each with their own paddle boards, were out in the middle of the lake celebrating one of their birthdays, complete with a birthday balloon and cake. What fun! While standing there on the shore, I felt Mount Hood calling and decided to go there next. Rounding each bend brought the famous mountain closer and closer. Its well-visited Timberline Lodge was a WPA Public Works project which was completed in 1937. I had been on Mount Hood once before. Classmate Marlon Schoonmaker organized our 2009 class reunion on Mount Hood. I took the ski lift up the mountain so I could walk over to the ski lodge where our reunion was held. Mount Hood boasts that it is the only place in the United States where you can ski the year around. However, this year, the ski season had closed just a week before my arrival because of lack of snow. I looked up and down the slope and it looked like there was still quite a bit of snow, but I guess just not enough. This is where our amazing reunion was held, and here are my classmates and spouses who were able to attend it. We had a great time up there on Mount Hood. Thanks, Marlon. I ate lunch that day in the Timberline Lodge. I felt fortunate to be seated looking out of a large picture window at Mount Hood. Occasionally, I watched hikers making their way along the Pacific Coast Trail that begins at the border with Mexico and ends at the border with Canada. I do love the mountains. It may be because I was born and attended school 8,000 feet up in the Himalayan mountains of North India. I have really enjoyed a full, wonderful month of camping in the Pacific Northwest, first with Laura and then alone with Henry. Now it was time to drive to Ocean Park, Washington for my next 3 weeks NOMAD volunteer service project at the Ocean Park Camp and Retreat Center. Thanks for virtually camping along with me this past month.